Hello, John here, M0JPI. Today's video is about AI recognition on the Red Pitaya using Edge Impulse. There are three stages to artificial intelligence signal classification on the Red Pitaya. The first stage is collecting the training data, which happens on the Red Pitaya board. The second stage is creating the model and training it, which happens on the Edge Impulse cloud on the internet. And then the third stage is inference, decision making, doing the classification, which happens on the Red Pitaya board with the Edge Impulse model. Once you've completed training, you don't need an internet connection anymore, and after training is complete, the decision making and the classification and the inference happens on the Red Pitaya board. In this video, we will focus on installing the model onto the Red Pitaya board, and then in the second video, we'll talk about training. For this video, I'm using a Red Pitaya board that I've bought a few years ago, the STEMlab 125-14. and the latest beta version of the Red Pitaya operating system, 2.0 beta 37. So the easiest way to get this example working is to use my GitHub repository. I'll put it in the link in the video, and then from there it's got a little description at the bottom. So if we clone the GitHub project, or you can do it this way as well, that's an alternative. And then you can use any kind of terminal connection to the Red Pitaya, but if you connect to the Red Pitaya using its website, which is on the sticker when you get the Red Pitaya, if you go to development, there is a web console and you can set it up that way. If this is a fresh install of the latest software from the Red Pitaya website, which this is, the password and the username is just root. I can copy and paste the instructions from my GitHub repository and paste them into there. So this is just taking a copy of my GitHub project, and I'm also going to make a link from my project from the root folder to the Jupyter home, so that when I start the Jupyter system, you'll be able to see my projects as well as the usual sample projects. So we can exit out of the web console and then go back to the list of applications. So now, if we go to development and Python, in here we've got a fresh install of Jupyter Lab, so I'm just going to say no, I don't want to get notified about Jupyter news. This is just because it's the first time. I'll remember what you said next time. And then this is the Red Pitaya standard Jupyter Lab tutorial. I'm going to close that down and discard that. And over on the left hand side of Jupyter Lab, you've got a number of different things. We've got the file browser, which is what we're in now. We can stop any tabs and kernels, I can shut them all down. And I can open up from the File Explorer and File Browser my Red Pitaya projects. Because we made a link to the projects, they're now in there under Red Pitaya projects. And I've got Jupyter notebooks, I've got a number of different examples. I'm actually going to use the audio setup from the ADC audio video which I will also put in the link of how the ADC video works. But for this example, I'm going to show artificial intelligence inference using edge impulse on the Red Pitaya board. So this is the example I'm going to use. Edge impulse audio. And I'm going to start off with audio classification from file, because that doesn't need any kind of hardware setup, so you can still test out the AI inference even without any kind of hardware on the board set up for microphones and things like that. So I'll start with that one. This also shows a diagram of what's happening. So this is how my hardware is set up, and this is how the software is set up. So for the hardware, I've got the microphone connected to fast input 2, which is sampling at 125 mega samples per second, but I have reduced the sample rate because that's really high for audio inputs. I've reduced it down in the code to within the audio range. And then you've got the FPGA chip, which has also got a dual core ARM CPU in it. We've got a micro SD card plugged into the Red Pitaya. There's onboard memory, and then there's 1 kilosample per second audio, analog and digital inputs and outputs. So that connects to my web browser with my computer, and it's connected to the internet. So this is the hardware setup for our AI example, and then this is the software setup here on the right. So we've got the audio is going in, the audio gets saved as an audio file, and you can see there's actually an example file that comes from my GitHub as an example file there. And so the audio file gets saved onto the SD card. There's the GitHub, the Jupyter notebooks come from GitHub, and they also get stored in the SD card. And then the next bit, the model file, gets saved from the Edge Impulse website into the model file. So all these 3 things get saved on the SD card, as well as lots of other things on the SD card, like the operating system. And then on the CPU, Linux and Jupyter Lab are running to do the AI inference. And then the FPGA, the Python FPGA overlay is loaded into the FPGA part of the chip. So this is the software setup, this is the hardware setup. And as I said, really it's just a simple microphone and amplifier attached to fast input 2. So the next thing we need to do is add in all of the Python libraries, and then we need to install the Edge Impulse SDK and model file. I've just realised I've not put any instructions for the model file, but I'll do them after I've done the Python libraries and the SDK install. So these instructions, you can go back to the console and run them at the console, but actually there's a feature within Jupyter that says if you put an exclamation mark in front of your instruction, it runs it as if it's running in the console instead of in Python. So if we just click on a cell and press B, we get a new cell, and it's a code cell. And because we're running Python 3, it'll put it as a Python cell with Python code by default. But if instead you put an exclamation mark in front, it'll run it as if it's a shell command. So if I do exclamation mark apt update, then it'll update the apt packet repository. We need to update it before we install the rest of it, because it needs to download the apt repository, otherwise it won't work. Once it's finished reading the packets, we should be able to do the next. So after this is finished, we can press B and we can do another cell with the instructions below, or you could just overwrite it. I am going to put the instructions below to show you what it does, but then the next time I'll do an overwrite. So it's saying that there are some packages that can be upgraded. We could upgrade them, but for now I'm just going to run it as is. So this is as it came with a fresh SD card. I would normally do the upgrade as well, but I'll leave that for today. So these are, it's Control and Enter to run the applications. I've put hyphen yes at the end, just so that we don't need to be interactive with the console. It will just work with a yes. And then we'll install these packages. It's a lot easier for Ubuntu to install the packages that we need in Faster than trying to build them. But there are some packages that we'll have to build later on. But these ones are faster because we're just installing pre-compiled files. So that's those finished. You can delete cells by just pressing D twice, and that deletes them. So that's all the Python libraries installed using apt, and then there are some that I need to use pip to install. So we'll use pip to install PyAudio. That's installed. Yeah, that's installed. So now I'm going to install the Edge Impulse Python libraries. I can just replace that code and it'll run it again over the top. And then we can install, we can download and then install the Edge Impulse software development kit. That's that one finished. Oh, that's finished. So I can't do this from Jupyter, but we need to download the file from Edge Impulse. Because I'm using the free account, the model file itself belongs to Edge Impulse. If you have a professional or corporate account, then you can redistribute the model file yourself, but you can't with a free file. So you need to run this command. It asks you for your email address that you've logged in to Edge Impulse with and your Edge Impulse password. So you'll need to set up an account on Edge Impulse to get it to work. You can just clone my project. So I will put this in the link below. If you go to here as a logged in Edge Impulse user, you can make a copy of this, and it will include all of the model files and the testing and all of the training data as well. So if you create an account on Edge Impulse, clone this project, which is going to be in the link for the video, and then run this command, put in your email address and the password that you've created for Edge Impulse, and then you'll have a model file over here. So this is our setup complete, and now we're ready to use the model to do AI inference. I will put that in a second video.